Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Saturday Spotlight. I'm so excited to see you in this new year. This week, I have the masterful Jay Arens with us. How are you, Jay?
Hi, I'm really good. How are you?
I'm good. So, from my understanding, you write like kind of a Prohibition punk, I think you've called it. Is that about right?
Yeah, I call it Prohibition Punk Private Eye. It's set very solidly in the 1920s, early 30s during that Prohibition era here in America. But I also have a holographic secretary and a touchscreen computer because, why not?
I love that. That's so fun. What kind of led you down the Prohibition era, writing style or setting?
I think it started the girl that was like my best friend when I was 11 was distantly related to Jesse and Frank James. And then we just kind of wandered down the road of, Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys. And we both grew up in Southwest Michigan. I still live here. And I actually live in a very small town where Capone and the Purple Gang would come and hang out a lot. One of his cars is actually in a lake that's less than 2 miles from my house currently. So I don't really know when it started, but it hasn't stopped yet. So I just, I really think that, like, moonshiners were so clever with the cars that they had and with the tricks that they did. And it was kind of like the beginning of that golden era of, like, how clever people were before technology really took over. Kind of like, the spies that were in World War II right up through the Cold War were very, very clever. So I don't know, I just kind of fell into that and very solidly just kind of stayed. So here I am.
I love that. I actually didn't know that Capone, I haven't heard the Capone story before, which is only fun because I grew up in Chicago, right? So we're all about our Al Capone. But that's so fun that one of his cars might be in a lake by your house. I feel like I'd want to, I'd have to go there. See if you could see anything.
It's about 20 feet deep, and according to one of the guys that I talked to, it's sunk up to its door handles in the mud right now. They've spent hours around a coffee table trying to figure out how they could pull it out of the lake without ruining it, and so far they haven't figured it out.
That'd be such a good find, right? If they ever pull it up.
Yeah, I'm sure it would definitely drive a lot of people to our little town for sure.
Oh yeah, your tiny little town. I love that. Oh, I apologize. I'm frog in my throat.
It's that time of the year. We all get it.
Yeah, it really is that time of the year. So I think that, the point you made about, like, people had to be so clever back then, and without technology, they kind of got a bit of a guise, right? They had to kind of work around certain things and have a bit of cover. How does your holographic secretary play into that? Because obviously that would be advanced technology, right, for the time.
That's where the punk comes in. I like to tell people it's like steampunk, but it's more World's Fair 1939. Which then usually sends people off to try to figure out what the World's Fair was like in 1930.
More Chicago references, Jay. I'm in it. I'm right there with you.
Basically, she started off as an idea because I also really liked Dick Tracy. So I kind of mashed my love for, like Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys and Dick Tracy into, like, one head-on collision of, I don't know, Private Eye. And so Dick Tracy has a watch that he can talk to people, like, not near him, like in the office and stuff like that. And the watch kind of metamorphosized into a holographic secretary that's got a bit of an attitude. So that's how that happened, yeah.
I love a secretary with an attitude. I like sassy characters. I think that they, like, especially as a side character, they punch out, the script and the plot a little bit.
She's definitely, like, the kind of secretary you would see in, like, Casablanca or, like, the Maltese Falcon. She's kind of that kind of a character. She often will be sitting on like one of the main characters' desks filing her nails, or she'll zap from one part of the room to the other and change outfits and like how her hair is done. So she's definitely like the most girly of all of the characters that I have in the book, and she's very sassy.
Ah, that sounds ideal. That's like yeah. I would love that. Do you have a favorite character or a least favorite character that you've written, or that like every time they come in the scene you're like yes, or the opposite of like, oh, I have to write this now?
I was really dreading this question because I really don't know. It's an ensemble kind of a piece. It started off as a single character and then morphed its way into like a really tight half dozen. I'd say probably, if I was forced to choose, Allie is probably my favorite. She's the one that I started with. Although lately I have one of the 3 mafia bosses that are in the books has really like inserted himself into the spotlight and become very popular. So I'm really enjoying writing him too. He makes me feel clever.
I think a lot of people fall for a good villain, you know.
He's a very good one. His name is Razor because he's so sharp, and he's an interesting fellow for sure.
That's awesome. Did you kind of know going into the story that he's in that he was going to be the villain, or did he kind of evolve on you as you were writing?
Actually, he evolved the other direction. He started off as a mob boss. I planned on him being a mob boss. I have 3 of them in this town that I created, which is not set anywhere because I wanted it to be vague enough that like someone like us from the Midwest could probably set them somewhere in like Chicago or Detroit. But it turns out like my biggest supporters are in Italy and like Germany and England. So, it was good that it was vague because otherwise I'd have to be researching streets and other things of that sort from the 30s. But I had set Razor as one of the 3 crime bosses. I had planned on him being extremely ruthless. He still is that, but he's like got this very like morally gray character now instead of just a very solidly like he's a bad guy.
It's so fun. It reminds me of Headpin in Deadpool. I don't know if you watched that,
like
but
that.
Is that the right name? The big bald guy, right? Played by Anthony D'Onofrio. That he, when you first meet him, it's like black and white, pure evil. And then like you get to know him and then you kind of are like, oh, well, not that what he did was okay, but like I kind of like see the point of view. Like I see how someone ends up that way, or makes those decisions, or they end up becoming more like sympathetic and tug at your heart a bit more.
Yeah, I actually just started a spin-off series that is Razor like centered. It's driven by him because he started off as a con man, which I had planned on like ages and ages ago when I started it, and it's kind of like he's sitting across the table from Ollie, and he's telling her the stories of the cons that he did when he was a kid or when he was a teenager. And the second one that's coming out next year actually talks about how he ended up in the mob family that fractured when the head, like the mafia don that was Don before Ollie became detective, died.
Oh, that's really cool. So what are the I guess the book titles, but also what's the first series that kind of kicked this all off for you?
The main series is the District Detective series. The very first book is The Silence Broken, and then Bay Snatch is out, and so is Prussian Blue. But I have a hard time calling them a series because that means that you have to read them in order, otherwise you don't understand them, or you don't know who these people are or why you care. And it's not like that so much as it is each book is like a separate case, or like a mostly separate case, because technically Prussian runs into book 4. But they're all standalone-ish or esque in like the world that I created, like under that umbrella. But that was the main series, and then last year I wrote a prologue so that I had something that was kind of like, before everything happened, that's set when Ollie is a teenager instead of when she's in her early 20s, before she gets, her badge and gets her job title. And that turned into, well, now there's two of them, because I had some people say that they felt like the case ramped up really fast and then just the sphere dropped and they didn't have an ending. So I'm working on that. So that turned into a mini-series. And then this Razor's Edge spin-off series just kind of came to me one day, like last November. So I chased it because I have to do more than one thing at a time because I'm a productive procrastinator. And, I just need to have like 18 projects going at all times so that I'm always stressed out. So that's kind of like a mini offshoot, spin-off series. So really it just kind of, some people really like the third book. Some people really want to start with the first book. I've had some people that have jumped in with the prequel and, on that miniseries. And then now there are some people coming in off of that first Razor's Edge that came out a couple weeks ago.
That's so cool. I don't think I've seen I don't think I saw that the new Razor's Edge came out recently. So you said that just launched a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, it came out November 17th. So it's been a couple of weeks. That one has been a very rough launch for me. I feel really bad. It started off I planned on October, and my editor had emergency surgery, so I told her, to take some time and just relax. And then I got my proof softcover about 2 weeks before the launch on the 17th of November, and somehow the interior file had been doubled. So instead of it being, just the one story, it was two of the same story. And I was very, very upset because I was so close. I was ready. So it was like when Wile E. Coyote tries to light the rocket and it blows up on him. That was that launch. It was just a big kaflooey of just, well, okay, and now it's here, but it's not like the big bang that I was hoping for. It's been my worst launch to date, but that's okay. It can only go up from here now, right?
I know that feeling, and I think a lot of authors would relate to that. I know the first time that it was my first book, so I tend to chalk it up to just not know what I was doing. But my first launch, I got a book that did not look like the book was supposed to at all. And it's hard. It's hard when it's really during a launch. It's not great when it's not a launch, right? And you get 30 copies and they're all messed up. But when it's your launch, there's just an extra special sting maybe that comes with it.
Yeah, I was really upset because, since it's an interior file, that means that my cover was wrong, which means that, I had to go back to my cover designer and be like, hey, can you make this again, but with the spine half that size?
Right.
And then go through the upload process again and wait for it. And, of course, it never goes fast, especially when you're on a deadline. And by the time that it was all said and done, my soft cover was 2 weeks later than, the ebook. So yeah, it wasn't the best launch ever, but that's okay. I figure if people stuck with me through this, then that means they really like me, right?
Yes, 100%. And I love your outlook of it can only go up from here. But it sounds like a completely intriguing story. So that's the other, silver lining behind it. Maybe the launch didn't happen the way that everyone intended it to. However, the quality of the story is still the quality of the story, and a couple weeks delay just means that, it's worth waiting for.
That's kind of what I thought. I only really had one person that was really excited to buy it, but I can catch up with her at a different point, too. So it's really not a super big deal.
Good. Do you have any other projects or events or promotions coming up that you want to tell people about?
I plan on releasing book 5 and 6 of the District Detective series next year, probably the second Razor's Edge as well. I hit on an idea for a holiday story 3 days ago, so I'm hopefully going to write that and have it done for next Christmas. I'm saying that now right out loud so that I actually do it and I don't dawdle my way out, because I tend to do that. But that's kind of where I'm at as far as like releasing wise. And I don't really have any big events planned yet, so to be decided, I guess you could say.
That's great. 3 releases in a year. That's huge.
That's planned. It might end up being more than that, but I have a lot of big ideas for like the main series, and I realized that if I only did 1 book a year, I'd be in my 80s before I got through all of them. So I decided to put a little more pressure on myself and get things going.
I'm super excited. Oh, that's kind of thrilling. I can't wait to like follow you and see what comes out and catch up. And I do think that I haven't read, like I said, I hadn't heard that The Razor's Edge had come out. I think I'll have to go and look that one up too. And that way when you do write the second one this year and it comes out as one of your 3, I'll be ready to go for it. If people
I think you really like it.
It sounds like it. I think like you said, because I'm from, the Midwest, that I'll envision it in Chicago, and that'll be fun. It'll be a nice throwback to home. If people want to follow you and your releases, things like that, where's the best way that people can find information about you and your books?
I'm on Facebook. That's where most of like my venting, ranting. Hey, look, I made a pretty cover. I wrote a thing. That's where most of that happens. It's under J. Arens, or it's the District Detective series if you stick that after Facebook.com or whatever. And then I just launched my website, which has all of the books in the ebook form and the hard actual physical copies, as well as I'm introducing merch slowly, which hopefully will start happening next year, probably in the next month or so. And that's the districtdetectives.com.
That's awesome. Well, I can't wait to look at all of that. Like I said, I'm definitely going to check out that Razor's Edge book. To anyone else that's on the fence, I definitely would love if you let us know, right? Let us know what you're reading if you also check it out. I would love to compare notes, because it's kind of boring to read a book by yourself, and I love talking to people about that. I'm like that about anything, though, I think, too. I like chatting. It's probably why I'm here. All right. Well, until next week, thank you so much, J. Arens, for being with us today. Thank you all for our viewers who are watching, and until next week, bye, everybody.